A very good evening to all our viewers. Thank you for joining us on this Monday's edition of the Evening Review. My name is Toiwan Jabala, your host. Tonight on the show, we are joined by Rozaline Joseph. She is an active young person who is serving as a director on the board of the National Youth Council, representing specifically people with disability. And she's also an activist in the space of particularly people with albinism. Rozaline, thank you very much for joining us tonight on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, wonderful. Just to first understand, so, you know, albinism, is it considered officially as a disability, for example?
Yes, people usually used to wonder why is albinism considered as a disability since it's just a skin thing.
Yeah.
But I always explain to people that the reason that we are under the umbrella of disability is for the fact that we have characteristics that are under disability, like low vision. You can find somebody that is albinism that's on a wheelchair or their arm is not there. So that's why we are actually under the umbrella of disability.
Okay. Yeah, we'll talk about disability in general later, but let's focus for now just on albinism. What are the challenges generally of people like yourself?
Yeah, there's a lot of challenges.
Yeah.
Number one, let me just start by identity, because people with albinism are born in different family members, whether it's black race or white race. So sometimes, for instance, you are from a black family, but you look white. And then also the fact that in society, most people have alienated people with albinism just because they look different and cannot relate to the way people are. And then the other thing is also the fact that, let me say, you are having low eyesight or low vision. Let me just start by education. First of all, you cannot probably see on the board when you're in the classrooms. You cannot have a driver's license just because you are legally blind. So there's actually a lot of challenges and the myths and conceptions that people with albinism can maybe like heal HIV if you sleep with them. So that also the fact that you can get kidnapped just for them to try and see if you can heal them in that type of sense, or that you are used for witchcraft to enrich people. So there's actually a lot of challenges that people with albinism face, just to name a few.
Speaking of, and I was also coming to that, the issue of perceptions that you can heal certain ailments. And we know that particularly in East Africa, people with albinism are really in trouble. They are being hunted down like animals, killed in multi-killings and stuff like that. In Namibia, there was a story a couple of months ago of, we ran it in Namibian Sun. It was about people wanting to buy parts or something like the hair and nails, if I'm not mistaken. How credible are those reports? I'm sure in your position as a leader in your capacity, you engage a lot of people with albinism. Is there such a threat in Namibia?
I think yes, definitely, because I also did a research in my final year, institutions and policies that protect the human rights of people with albinism, specifically in the context of Namibia. And there were stories, and I feel like most of the time Namibian stories are not documented. So I think that it is credible for the fact that people actually, although it's not said in the public sphere, there are people that experience this kind of things like rejection or people wanting to buy their hair and things like that for witchcraft purposes. I just think it's because our voices are not loud enough in the context of Namibia, but absolutely things are happening that concerns the human rights of people with albinism.
Yeah. I mean, I see people with children with albinism, for example, being, in Windhoek, being cautious about how far their children go on the streets. They don't go too far, play around the house, and stuff like that. So, because of that fear. So, what can you put on record in terms of the truthfulness of these perceptions that there are benefits and stuff like that? What can you put on the record in that regard?
I think people should just start also understanding the biological explanation for why somebody is an albinism, which is just the lack of pigmentation, or melanin, let me say. So it's just the fact that we look different because lack of color or lack of pigment. It doesn't mean truly that we can be used or we have superpowers to actually make people rich if you do use them for witchcraft. So those are just myths. And I always say that it's just for the fact that people, because of the difference in physical appearances, they probably think we have superpowers, but that is absolutely not true.
And then in your social circles, what kind of experience have you gone through all your life as a person and even as a child at the time with that condition, in terms of acceptance? I mean, if you are at a party with friends, or even in terms of how you are perceived by men, for example. I mean, if there's a man who genuinely likes you, but maybe they get told by others that no, but I mean, really, is that the best you can do? What kind of experiences have you gone through in that regard?
Okay, firstly, from my household, I grew up with both my parents, but in the household, for me, my parents actually did not treat me that difference compared to my siblings, which are black. But the only thing is that they will try to protect me from the sun by making me wear long sleeve things and a hat before I enter the sun. So for me at home, it was just fine. The only thing that started making me feel conscious about how differently I look is maybe when I'll go play in the streets with my friends, and then I'll get sunburned, and I never understood why is my skin getting sunburned and others are just getting darker in color or something. So yeah, and when it comes to relationships, for me as a woman also, I will be obviously very, what can I say, very careful of who I choose to be or to become my partner or somebody to date, just because number one, you don't know if this person's intentions are genuine. I even had some men, I think when I was in college, and somebody made a remark and said like, can I say it in a Shwambo?
Yes.
Okay, a man made a remark and it's like, mutu no, you know. So it's like, so you don't know if the person's intentions is really to make them their partners or just like test you. So how many people would you also want to be tested by? So exactly. You are careful of who you try to engage, and also the fact that it is a very vulnerable position to be. You don't know if this person will also be broke one day and willing to sell you. You really don't know these things. So these are the things that you actually think about when it comes to getting into relationships, or who you engage, or who your friends are, even just to begin with. Are you free, and are you safe with the company that you have?
Absolutely. Before we go on a break, Rozaline, what kind of support then do people with albinism get from the state? I mean, I know, for example, that some people come from not so well-to-do families. They need some lotions and stuff like that, or umbrellas, or even eyeglasses. Are there any schemes out there that sort of help people like yourself?
Yeah, I think most of the time is actually non-governmental organizations that cater to people with albinism. And this is why my research was so keen to know what is the position of the government when it comes to people with albinism and protecting their human rights compared to other countries that this plight has been going on. But what I found is that I think it's the Ministry of Health, whereby people with albinism can go to the hospitals or clinics and get some sun lotion. That's the only scheme that I know, but I don't know their stand when it comes to protecting, when it comes to their policies and protecting the human rights of people with albinism.
Yeah, indeed. We go for a quick break and return for second half. We continue our conversation with Rozaline. So, in light of what you just said before the break, that there is no particular schemes, is that sufficient, or do you think there's something in particular that needs to be done in that regard?
I think that more things need to be done, actually, because number one, it's not only sun lotion that we need. We also need clothing, hats, just because the Namibian heat is really hot for people like us. And also policies regarding how to specifically really safeguard and ensure that the crimes that are going on in other African countries is not going to happen here, because it's going to create a state of fear among people with albinism, meaning that we will not fully participate in society activities just because you have fear. So you will prefer actually to be behind closed doors, just because you'll be like, I might step out and I might never return. So for me, it's really the policies to safeguard their human rights.
Indeed. Now, that case of the people who were in the papers for trying to sell hair and whatnot, is it something that you have followed closely? Maybe what is the status there? Are these guys out of jail now? What is the feeling within the community of people with albinism?
Okay. The stand, I mean, the stand for the community for people with albinism is that, number one, these people should not be released on bail. Just because if we even give the chance for them to succeed in whatever they were trying to do, which was obviously kidnap or sell their hair, it means that it will leave an open door for other people to try and engage in this kind of activities. So the stand is that they really don't want to give even a little chance of this happening. And I know that the court case is on the 29th of June, and people with albinism, they will be there just to show their stand together, united, that these people should not be released on bail.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
Let's talk about disability in general. I know that in Namibia there's a lot of you hear the state, the government officials, making these pronouncements of inclusivity. Are we making progress in that regard, or are we still far behind where we want to be?
I think when it comes to disability, we are very far behind, even just compared to South Africa, our neighboring countries. When it comes to inclusive education, accessing education, education or any institution that you want to be as a person with disability, it's so hard. And just because not every institution of higher learning cater to people with disability, not every school catered to people with disability. So the thing is, we have actually like these special schools whereby people with disability have put in. But then the fact is, our voices, we want to be able to access the normal schools as other kids do. We want to be able to go to any tertiary education which we wish to. We want to be able to enter any job market which we want to. And even in employment, I see that there's a lot of advertisement that always encourages for people with disability to apply. But then when you see to it, the percentage of employed people with disability is very less compared to the population of the people with disability in Namibia. And also that becomes very problematic, because then people with disability, you will see is that then a few of them will have the capacity and the skills. So meaning that when we close doors, or when people with disability cannot access these things to improve their lives, to have skills development, it means that they become inactive members of society. So we have a lot to do. Just an example of how a student from SA, I think, was it at UNAM, they wanted to further their studies here in Namibia, and she had a guide dog. And people did not even understand what a guide dog is, because a guide dog does not actually even, though it will not attack you for any reason. What it does is that it guides the person that is blind to wherever they want to go to. And I remember that she had to go back because she felt like she's not accessing all she needs, her materials, and the fact that people had a problem that she's walking around on campus with that guide dog, which was actually harmless. So that you're already limiting somebody to, potentially being
realize
active.
their dreams and everything like that. Yeah. Look, I mean, you're reminding me of a situation. When I grew up as a child, my school had children from my neighboring house who were deaf, they couldn't hear, and they could barely speak. And they were just bundled together with us in the same classrooms without any special arrangement for them. And a lot of them ended up not being able to read still. They went all the way up to grade 10. They're because once you fail twice, they push you to the next grade to make space for other children. Grade 10, they didn't make it, and some of them cannot even read up to now, which is very, very sad. The first time in my life that I met a person with disability in school was when I was in grade 11 in Ongwediva there, because we then had Elua, with a special school, which was supplying some of the, particularly the visually impaired guys. It's the first time in my life that I met people with disability being actually accommodated in school, which was very, very sad, because I'm imagining what could have happened to the guys from my village if there were special measures for them. Maybe they could be doing very well in their lives. But then you spoke about capabilities. How do we balance that with, because there's also this perception that people with disability, maybe there's an element of entitlement. They think that just because you have one leg or both legs amputated, then suddenly you qualify to become a director in the Ministry of Health or whatever. Can you tell us just about, the capabilities? I mean, look, and I'm saying this with due sensitivity. So I don't want to sound wrong at all, but do you then say that we must strictly focus on capabilities and not just that vulnerability that people have?
Absolutely. Just because when I come for a job interview, number one, I'm taking my chances because I know probably the requirements that was on there, I meet half of those requirements. So I think institutions should shift away from when they see somebody that is disabled, that they are incapable of doing the job because it is my brain that I'm using. If it's physical work, and I'm incapable, number one, I don't think I would have applied for that job. So when it comes to capabilities, I think that they are actually people with disabilities that are very much capable compared to even non-disabled people.
Yeah.
But because of their disability, they are usually undervalued or not recognized at all, or for the fact that people just do procedural things that, okay, let's include somebody with disability in an interview so it can be seen like we are doing something. But then for me, numbers don't lie. You cannot say an institution have been hiring people with disability if when, like, let me say, when we are taking statistics and we are asking how many people of disabilities are employed and there's a very few numbers, it means that our institutions are actually not taking in this capable people. And then at the end of the day, you are forced to go sit at home and, as I'm emphasizing, not participate in society, though you are very much capable. And this is a very saddening actually situation, because there's a number of people that are skillful, that are qualified even, because there are some people with disability that went to study at higher institutions of learning and they have got their degrees and qualification, their masters, but just because of their disability, they are not accessing those employment opportunities compared to other people. And I think one thing that is very important, I think this is an advice just for the HR practitioners, is when you are interviewing somebody with disability, maybe you should ask, what is it that we can give you that will help you perform at the potential compared to the non-disabled people? Because sometimes it's probably just a computer whereby I can enlarge my fonts if I can't see. Sometimes it's probably just for totally blind people to have, is it like a JAWS program that speaks, like you can literally type and it's speaking everything that you're typing. So meaning you can actually do the work. It's just that probably, you know, you need an extra material or instrument that will help you to perform at your best.
Yeah. The last question, and if you can answer it in 1 minute, is then, I mean, when we see job adverts, advertisement, a lot of them, you know, at the bottom, the people with disability are encouraged to apply. And then here you are saying that there's actually a huge disproportionate gap in terms of bringing people with disabilities into jobs and whatnot.
Yes.
Do you think that line is just a formality now because everybody seems to be using it?
Yeah.
But when you look at the situation on the ground, you don't really see a lot of disabled people working. Yeah.
That is absolutely what I'm saying, that some of these things are just procedural because you want people to see that, okay, you're encouraging people, but you're actually not taking them in. And I feel like it's very advisable that we have actually regulations and measures to put into place. Maybe, okay, how many people with disability have you applied, I mean, have you, that are working for you in your institution, for example? Or like, because I'm not saying that we should do a pity syndrome whereby you are taking somebody that is disabled just to be like, okay, I hired somebody. What I'm saying is that we should really take people that have the capacity which you are looking for, but is disabled. So what I'm saying is you should overlook the disability of the person, but look at the capabilities and the skills which they can bring to your team or to your institution and what they can do for you. So that's just my outcry.
Yeah, indeed. Rozaline, thank you very much for making time for the show today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Wonderful. That is Rozaline Joseph, who is a board member at the Namibia National Youth Council, rather, representing people with disabilities, talking about that and also the situation around people with albinism. Thank you for watching.